When you're starting any area of life, there's two forms of leverage that you have, and that's time and your skills. When you start off, you don't have the skills. So you just got to brute force it, and I think the fear is useful there. Because when you're doing anything for the first time, you're going to be super inefficient. As in fear, there's like studies on this and everything, fear will get you out of bed faster than motivation. So it's a good jump start. I think I had like €500 left to my name.
You were in Bali, living your best life.
I wasn't even being like irresponsible. I just genuinely, like what had happened was I'd had months of me doing these website projects. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I basically, imposter syndrome is valid if you don't know what you're doing. I remember there was 3 months straight where I actually lost money for all the work that I did because it cost me more money in subcontractors that I was being paid by the clients. And all this time, so I'm working 18 hours a day. I'm literally paying more people than I'm being paid. I just want this off my chest. I was waking up every day panicking, like panic attacks all the time, freaking out. The definition of operating out of fear, and yeah, I was operating out of scarcity and fear, whatever you want to call it. But that got me out of bed. If you have a job that you find meaningful, unreal, like go for that. Like a lot of my best friends, like doctors, teachers, I'm like, that is the most honourable way you could spend your life. Like I'm not, you see a lot of it in Bali, people are not fuck the 9 to 5, or escape the matrix.
Tomás, welcome to the One Way Ticket podcast.
Great to be here.
So, would you like to introduce yourself for anyone that's listening?
Yeah, I don't really know the best way to describe myself, but I suppose my name's Tomás O'Dwyer. I'm an Irish, I don't like the word entrepreneur, I run a marketing agency, is what I'll say, and I live in Bali. I've been here for 3.5, coming up, I suppose. Don't know why I looked at my watch there. And, 11 hours, and I arrived, June 2021, so I've been here on and off. So coming up on 4 years.
Wow.
Did a bit of time in Australia, traveled around Europe and stuff, but yeah, that's where my base is. Day to day, run an agency, do some other stuff on the side. And
Amazing.
It's just been an interesting trajectory.
Amazing.
Based on where I was supposed to be.
That's life.
Yeah.
So from biomedical engineering to running a marketing agency and hypnotherapy, how does that happen?
Growing up, my teachers were always saying, you'll be a scientist or something like that, because from when I was young, I was always reading like 4 hours a day. I was just kind of consumed by that, and I always had to be doing something very academic. And what was interesting when I made that decision to become a biomedical engineer in the first place, I think in Ireland and always in school, so much of your mental bandwidth goes towards getting enough good grades to get into university, and not enough on what you should actually do when you get there. So I think I kind of fell into that trap just because I felt like I should. And I was good at maths, I was good at biology, all that sort of stuff. And I made the decision to study biomedical engineering because I was really interested in helping people with their wellness and health in general, and I had that sort of logical mind, which inevitably resulted in me running Clinic Success Partners, which are agency, shameless plug. And to be honest, from day one, I was never into it. I knew that. I remember saying to my parents after first week, like, this is not for me. They said, stick with it. And needless to say, my attendance would say wasn't exemplary. If anyone studied with me, they would have known that nowadays in business we call it delegation, but back then it would have been called working with your friends and not doing all the work yourself, maybe. But it was interesting, I suppose, in retrospect. I think I said this to you before. There's this quote from Steve Jobs. I think it was a Stanford acceptance speech, and he basically said something to the effect of, as you navigate through life, you're sort of just making the best decision at the time, and it's only when you look back that you can connect the dots. So
Absolutely.
So it's easy for me to paint this whole hero's journey, like, I did this and then I did this and it all worked out. I'm still winging it every single day, but I'm also aware that everyone's winging it. So I'm just trying to take the road less traveled where I can. And in retrospect, when I was in university, I would do anything but get a normal job. Like I worked as like a nightclub promoter, which is the cliche job. I used to work, bring people on bar crawls. So I'd basically approach strangers on the street and say, hey, spend €15, you get to go out with me and my friends, you get these discounted drinks. And at the time, it was just a case of paying for my drinking by drinking. And my first, what I realized then was, while it was a good deal for someone who was like 19, it was actually the guy who was running the business that was really getting the upside, because we were getting €5 out of that every €15, but we were the ones doing the work. And there was the owner of the business would step back and he'd collect 10 for doing nothing. And it was eye-opening for me because I could see that he wasn't any smarter than me. He just had taken that risk and sort of defined his own rules. So that always appealed to me. And I think in business or whatever you're doing in life, I think your risk tolerance is a much bigger indicator of success than your actual intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can be a genius, but if you don't do what you want to do, it doesn't matter. Like, coming first in a race that you don't want to be running in the first place doesn't count as a win. So as university went on, I did that. I used to teach people mathematics, things like that. Graduated, moved to Canada. COVID happened, decided to become self-taught as a software engineer. And then basically June 2021, there's a few other steps. So basically I moved to Bali as an intern, put my ego at the door. I had this engineering degree, didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Figured I'd become a web developer. And actually before that, I had invested in a coach, which is one thing I'm a big advocate of. Once you choose the right one, that's actually walk the walk. And it was a freelancing coach. And my game plan at the time was, okay, so I'm going to go to Bali, learn, like, hopefully get a job as a web developer, but as a fallback, I can start freelancing, keep myself tied over as a plan B. And that's literally what happened. I came to Bali on this internship. After 4 weeks, I was like, I'm learning nothing here. I'm running out of money. I'm just going to start doing freelance web design, keep me tipping over while I'm still trying to get a job. And that kind of just evolved as time went on. And I really learned the importance of actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk. When the service or product that you're offering is genuinely good enough, you don't need to look for a new client every month. So I started learning like SEO, which is optimizing websites for Google. There's an interesting story how I got into that, but very interesting story. But basically what happened was, a few months later, I had a few clients paying me a certain amount every month. And then over the years that evolved into the agency. And that's basically it. There's a lot more detail, but that's like the high level overview.
That's amazing. On our pre-interview, you also mentioned that when you launched your agency, you were operating from fear mode. So you were waking up at 4 a.m., having the ice baths and doing everything that social media was telling you to do to be successful.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us about that?
My friends were like, oh, you're working so hard, which, again, for anyone that went to university with me wouldn't recognize, because they're like, Tomás didn't do any work. But I was up at 5 a.m. every day. I remember I would stay with, there's a local, obviously we're in Bali, I was staying with a local family. I was spending like no money. I would put any money I could towards just being in a good co-working space, which was B work. And the reason being was, yeah, but the big thing was, everyone there was where I wanted to be. And I've kind of said before, I think if there's one hack or like effortless way to upgrade the quality of your life, it's change the people that you're looking up to. Like, change the standard of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I was staying in this, I'll be polite and say basic place, but I was spending like very little. I literally had a bed, I had a desk, some dodgy water, and that was it. Like, that was all I had outside of work. So I used to get up at 4 a.m, but not out of discipline. Like, I wasn't like listening to David Goggins every morning or Hormozy being like, yeah. I was freaking out because that I couldn't afford rent. So I'd wake up, big cortisol spike, and I was like, right, all that I can do is act on this. Like, me ruminating in bed isn't going to get me anywhere. I started putting in these big slogs, and don't get me wrong, I think when you're starting any area of life, there's 2 forms of leverage that you have, and that's time and your skills. When you start off, you don't have the skills. So you just got to brute force it, and I think the fear is useful there. Because when you're doing anything for the first time, you're going to be super inefficient. Like, you know this, you've ran ads, you've done video, you run your agency. But obviously, you need to do that with the understanding that as you get better, you'll get faster. So I could do stuff now in like 5 minutes that would have taken me 3 hours, legitimately, back in the day. And back then I had no money to delegate, I had no systems, I had no whatever. So I always say that the stick is more potent than the carrot in the short term, but it's a toxic fuel that corrodes you over a longer time horizon. As in, fear, there's like studies on this and everything, fear will get you out of bed faster than motivation. So it's a good jump start. But the issue is, by definition, you're in fight or flight. And if you spend long enough in fight or flight, it starts wearing on your health, your relationships and all that. So I think the goal really is to realize, okay, what is the minimum amount of momentum that I need to be at to realize, okay, I can swap out that fuel source, like swap out that fear for love, so to speak. The best metaphor I've heard for this is Chris Williamson, and he was saying it's kind of like a spaceship leaving Earth. You need enough momentum to break free of the gravitational pull. In this case, it's fear. And then once you realize, okay, things are working out. I am getting sales calls regularly. I am getting good results. I can kind of not chill, but be rest assured that at this point I've stacked up enough evidence that I know my stuff. And I don't need to be freaking out every time, because you've got this stack of undeniable evidence that, okay, I freaked out about losing a client before. What happened? I was able to get one a few weeks later. You know, this person was annoyed at me. I had that uncomfortable conversation. We worked through it, and you start building confidence through evidence. And then at that point, be it conscious or unconscious, you need to realize, okay, things are going to work out. Like, I will win if I keep playing. So let's just like lean into that, and then your life becomes a lot more enjoyable, and you're also not in fight or flight. And ironically or paradoxically, or whatever way you want to call it, things go even better because you're not approaching like sales calls with fear.
Absolutely.
And scarcity.
Clients can smell that. Yeah. Clients can smell if you're desperate for clients. And I always say, when you're busy, you always get new client inquiries. And then when you're literally, your agency is dead, there's nothing. And as I said, clients can smell it. And absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I always say, everything in life boils down to the quality of your relationships with yourself or with others. And I think the concepts for relationships are fairly universal, be it like romantic, be it family, be it friends, be it business, whatever it is. And not to put like a Machiavellian twist on it, but from a business standpoint, obviously when you're negotiating, it's whoever needs it less has the leverage. Mm-hmm. Like, if you have the ability to walk, you know you're good, basically. So by operating out of abundance, and I know it's like a cliche word that everyone throws around, but if you're grateful for what you have, you know you're sweet. You're not going to get pushed around because you know you're content with or without that other half of the relationship. And where am I going with this? What am I trying to say here now? Yeah, what I was going to say was, for example, if it's friends, like you see this in other areas as well, like be it friends or otherwise. If you have a friend who's kind of constantly clutching on, like, please hang out with me, please hang out with me, please hang out with me. I know. Or like you're in a relationship and the partner is needy or whatever, it is sort of, it will repel you. Because you're like, why is this person so dependent on my approval that they're not happy with their own? And again, that's universal and it translates into...
Absolutely, and with a partner as well. When you're dating as well, I guess.
Someone 100%.
Too needy.
Yeah, it's the opposite of attractiveness and neediness. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you just like define neediness as being more invested in somebody else's approval or validation than you are of your own, then it makes sense. So if you're genuinely independent, you're genuinely content, inevitably you'll become more magnetic because people will be like, oh, I want a bit of what they have. What is it? Why are they so confident? What do they know that I don't want? No. They say that they're lucky. They say that everything works out. I want a bit of that in my life. And you start getting these inbound opportunities, like, you know, people hitting you up for work and stuff like that. And inevitably you're way more fun to be around.
Absolutely.
So that's, people like people that like themselves.
Absolutely. Let's talk about when you moved to Bali. You mentioned you had your internship, you were hardly making any money, plus you were not enjoying it, plus you were not learning anything new. And you also told me, like outside this episode, that you landed your first SEO client when you were in Bali with very little experience.
Yeah, so um, I've disclaimer, I got them really good results, and I still have they don't know they were my first client. So, but I ended up working with them for years. But I mean, in Ireland, we say I was talking out of my arse. Like I didn't. Basically, what happened was I think I had like €500 left to my name.
Oh, you were in Bali, living your best life.
I wasn't even being like irresponsible. I just genuinely like what had happened was I'd had months of me doing these website projects.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was doing, and I basically like imposter syndrome is valid if you don't know what you're doing. Like, unfortunately, it's just being self-aware, and it's just objective truth at a certain point. You know, it's like
it's not even imposter syndrome.
No, it's like I feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
It's just like, common sense.
Because you don't know what you're doing.
It's common sense.
Yeah, it's being observant. But I was like taking on these website projects, and there's so many lessons that I learned along the way, be it business or otherwise, that you know I remember once that we were charging like a certain. I remember there was once, it was 3 months straight where I actually lost money for all the work that I did because it cost me more money in subcontractors that I was being paid by the clients. And all this time, so I'm working 18 hours a day. I'm literally paying more people than I'm being paid. I was like, I just want this off my chest. I was waking up every day, panicking, like panic attacks all the time, freaking out. Just the definition of operating out of fear. And I kept taking all of these small projects. And a friend of mine, Robin, was making like very good money doing SEO, which again, just get more website visitors in organically on Google, for lack of a better word. And he was always saying like, focus on one thing. And that's like one thing I would always say, like, you can have anything, but not everything. So choose your battles, like learn what to say no to, so you can focus on, again, that minimum momentum required to be successful. Like if you're focusing on 10 different things, 10% of your focus is on everything, and you're wondering why you're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Because like you're taking a turn left, then you're going right, then you're going back, then you're going forward, you're going up and you're going down. So like,
and then you're getting no results
getting absolutely
anywhere.
Nowhere because you're going in circles.
Nowhere.
Yeah. So what happened was I was like, right, I have a couple €100. This is not ideal. I think it was the week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas. I talked to my parents, like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And they're like, just, you've made it this far. You've been here for like 6 months. Write it out. Just double down on this new thing, SEO. Because the idea of that was I'd get paid every month instead of one-off projects, which, as you know, running an agency, cash flow is
absolutely
important. But the funny thing was I hadn't a clue what to do for it. Well, fuck it, I'll pull the university card that if you're confident enough, maybe it'll work out. So I was on this freelancing platform. I won't mention what it was, but I changed my profile to SEO expert. And I just like wrote down a load of stuff. I didn't even know what half the words meant. And I knew there was a training. I'd seen this course on how to run an SEO agency. It was like $4,000. I didn't have that money. But I was like, oh, that's like my golden ticket. And again, this is a perfect case of the butterfly effect. One night I was in B work. I was like, I want to buy this course. It's my lifeline. But I don't have the money. And one of the guys was like, you can just pirate those courses for like €50. So I bought the only bit of Bitcoin that I've ever bought, because to pirate this course I need to pay for it in Bitcoin. Spent like €50 on that. So now I'm at like no money. And I'd only covered the sales module of the course on how to sell SEO. And I just kept doing all this outreach, and then like a week or two later I have a few sales calls. Within a month I had my first 2 clients. And I used the money that they paid me up front to pay for the software to actually do the work. And it was around Christmas, and they were an Australian client, they were taking holidays. So I had a small bit longer to basically buy myself to learn SEO and get that first month of work done. And I remember like literally printing off I literally found a PDF of a book on how to do SEO, and this is like how little I knew. I literally printed off. I had pen and paper. I was like, okay, so it says check this page for this.
There
Check.
was not
I've done
ChatGPT
that.
at that
No,
time.
no ChatGPT. I was literally pen and paper, like tongue out, being like, right. And yeah, whatever reason, I got them. I actually ended up getting them really good results and ended up working with them for years. I ended up becoming really good friends with them, met up with them and all that stuff. But that kickstarted it. But yeah, it's a case of you missing 100% the shots you don't take. I became really, really good at at SEO, and then within a few months, I had more clients, and I had some team members, and
And now
then
you're experts and have an agency.
yeah. But if I
SEO.
didn't try, if I kept it all theoretical, I wouldn't have gotten there. If I hadn't said
Absolutely.
fuck it, if I hadn't literally burnt the boats, I always say if there's a plan B, plan A won't work. I literally did not have a choice. So yeah, I was operating out of scarcity and fear, whatever you want to call it, but that got me out of bed. It allowed me to get the momentum to whatever escape Earth's gravitational
Love
pull.
that. I love to hear that. Thanks for sharing that story.
I've already told I've only told like 2 people that. So yeah, I mean, I got them, as I said, I got them good results. It'd be a different story if I didn't. If it had burned after 3 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I worked for
absolutely.
like 2 or 3 years together.
Amazing. Something that you told me, something that you shared with me that I really like was the so for example, why do I choose to continue working in this place even though I hate it, I'm not happy, but I'd rather continue here than quit and move on to another role or start that business or move to another city. Why do you think people do that?
Humans are like pattern recognition machines. So it's very often, you know, the whole adage, like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I do want to say, like, this is a few disclaimers here. Like, number one, this isn't just work, it's like relationships. It's like, oh, I know I'm miserable in this relationship, or I know this friend is bad for me, or I know whatever it is, I know this lifestyle is unhealthy for me, but I know it. And there's also an element of what's called sunk cost fallacy. You're probably aware of this. It's like, you see it with, say, gamblers all the time. They spend, say, $500 on playing blackjack or whatever. And they're like, right, well, I've lost 500 already. I don't want that 500 to waste. I better keep going with it. And then they lose all their money.
Absolutely.
It's like knowing when to cut your losses is important. But also, I think it's important, just disclaimer, because I hate this, where people are like shitting on certain jobs, like 9 to 5. It's like, if you have a job that you find meaningful, unreal, like go for that. Like a lot of my best friends, like doctors, teachers, I'm like, that is the most honorable way you could spend your life. Like, I'm not, you see a lot of it in Bali, people are like, oh fuck the 9 to 5, escape the matrix.
Yeah, I never hated my 9 to 5s. When I had my 9 to 5s, I literally thrived, and I always say that I used my 9 to 5s to build my dream life.
Yeah.
The only reason why I don't do the regular 9 to 5, it's, which by the way, entrepreneurship is 24/7.
Yeah.
That's another story. Yeah, the only reason why I don't do it is obviously because I like to split my day in different ways, just because my role is very creative. I always have to come up with new ideas for my clients, for my team. So it's just, it works in like 9 a.m. doesn't work for me. Sometimes it's 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. and, you know, or even later. So I don't hate 9 to 5s either. And I hate when people make it sound like as if entrepreneurship is the only way to go.
I think there's like this whole hustle culture thing of like, make your business. And I don't get me wrong, I am the person that is doing that, but I'm also aware there's trade-offs to any decision you make in life. So I do want that disclaimer. Like, I've got a lot of family members where their job, they finish work at 3 p.m, they hang out with their friends, and they'd be fucking miserable running a business. So
absolutely,
you know,
I know,
and it's really honorable
it's not
work.
for everyone.
100%.
The issue is that it's not that people hate 9 to 5s, it's that people hate their jobs. It's that people are settling for a job they don't like. It's probably different to what they studied, or something that they're just not passionate about, and it's maybe the first real job. It happens to a lot of grads, you know, the first adult job that you get after university. And the issue is not the 9 to 5. The issue is that you don't like what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. I think, again, when you start anything, you're going to not be great at it. That's inevitable. But I was going to say, like, lukewarm is the most dangerous place you could be. You know, if you're a 5 out of 10, a 6 out of 10 and everything, it's not enough fear to actually take action.
I literally spoke about this
Did
with
you?
my guest the other day.
Yeah.
I have another guest. We're going to talk about this. So it has a name, isn't it? He explained it. This is like science. Can't remember the name. I'll probably cut this bit out. But one of the guests that's coming next week, we spoke about this. So he was like, if your life is a 6 or a 7, you don't
Yeah.
you're comfortable, but you don't hate it enough to change.
100%. Like you're nearly, it sounds bad, but you're nearly better off being, if you know someone's not, for example, romantic relationship or whatever, if someone is outright disrespectful to you, it's nearly easier to end it than if it's like, it's okay, but you know for a fact that you shouldn't be in it. Because, again, that sunk cost fallacy component we talked about. So if everything's just meh, it's not enough fuel to actually take action. Again, that minimum threshold required to break free of Earth's gravity, I suppose. But the unhappiness over uncertainty. So I remember, like, I was like, again, connecting the dots when I was younger. When I was like 18, I read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and it's really funny how things unfold. But I remember there's one line in it, and I took a lot of lines from it. But most people choose unhappiness over uncertainty. So again, disclaimer: if you're doing what you find meaningful, or you're doing necessary work in order to build a meaningful life, like, power to you. But if you know for a fact what a specific area of your life is not what you want to be doing, I'll give him an example. I remember my final year of university. I remember, engineering, tough course, all this. And I remember there was this specific kitchen area where we'd go to when we're doing all-nighters, just drinking a load of coffee, like cramming before exams, all that kind of stuff. I remember just talking to a few different people, and it's like, oh, what are you doing next year? Oh, I'll be an engineer. Oh, cool. Do you want to be one? No. I was like, okay. So I asked the next person, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to be whatever, mechanical engineer, computer engineer, whatever it is. And I'm not knocking, by the way, any of this at all. This is just one example that comes to mind. But the interesting thing was I asked 5 or 6 people, and they were all like, I don't want to do it, but I don't want to waste the last 4 years. And again, you'll see this with, relationships where you have a friend who you know is miserable, but they just are afraid to pull the trigger, or they want to start something up, be it like helping a local community and start a new lifestyle, but they're afraid of changing what they're used to. But I remember thinking, okay, so if you have 100 different options, and you know that, like, there's only one outcome that you know for 100% certainty that you'll be miserable doing, then literally any other option you could take has a greater than 0 chance of it working out. So that was my thing. I remember I came back from Canada. I was like, right, fuck, I better sell my soul. Do this course, this job. That's a result from a course that I didn't like. That's a result from a decision I made when I was 17. And that would be my life, but I don't want it to be. And then, I remember it's like I broke down. I realized, like, I just fucking wasted 4 years of my life. What the hell? Like, I don't want to do this. I was actually going to move to London, and I just sat and I was like, it is literally the only life decision I know that I can make right now. That will make me miserable. Anything else is a greater than 0% chance. So that detail that I mentioned before I came to Bali was at that time. So I came back from Canada. I moved over there 2 weeks after I finished university. I could have applied for engineering jobs, but what I did was the only job I could get was sorting parcels in a post office from midnight until 7 or 8 in the morning. So I did that during the night. I'd sleep from 8 a.m. to around 2 p.m. And then I'd spend from 2 p.m. until like 9 or 10 p.m. learning how to code. And I was like, it was a minimum wage job at night, but it's all I could get. And then my promotion was working as a waiter in a local cafe. And all the neighbors were, and I was like, at this point, I'm like 22, 23. I'm working minimum wage. I'm serving coffee to the parents of my old friends. And everyone else working there is either in like their 40s or else they're like 17. And I had to say to my neighbors that I'd known since I was 12, they're like, oh, were you not doing engineering? I was like, yeah. they're like, oh, you obviously dropped out. I was like, no, I graduated. And you see, they're like, why the fuck are you here? And I had to just keep a deadpan face, like, oh, I'm just working on something. But like, just leave my ego at the door, because I knew the only option that would make me miserable was doing that one thing. So like, I was, for a year and a half, I was bouncing between working nights in a post office, in a factory. I spent like, what I would do is I'd have AirPods in, so I'd be listening to audiobooks for 8 hours a day while I'm working. I figured I'd make the most of it. It's cliche, but I got to like 60 books in a year.
But you it's not a cliche. You read a lot.
Yeah.
You're very smart.
Yeah,
Your IQ is higher than most people.
No, if I say anything smart, it's because I'm paraphrasing someone else.
No, he's very smart.
No, like 90% stuff I just mutate them in different ways. But yeah, so like at night it was I'd work sorting parcels, minimum wage, listen to audiobooks for like 8 hours. I'd sleep, and then I'd learn to program during the day. But I just didn't tell people. And I'd no idea how I'd make it work. My promotion, then I got this job in a cafe. Okay, at least I can sleep at night. I'll just continue to learn to program. Then, this is just a case of choosing uncertainty over unhappiness. I was in a local shop. There's a guy in that shop who was working there at the time, but I knew he also ran a marketing agency. I was like, fuck, like, this is an opportunity. And the guy, Dara, was like 19, but he ran an agency. I was like, whoa. He's 4 or 5 years younger than me, and he's already got a business. So I went up to him and I was like, okay, do you guys build websites? He was like, yeah. I was like, I'll work for free until you hire me. It's kind of a hard deal to say no to. And it turns out they were actually looking to hire a web developer. So then, all of a sudden, I'm working for free for like a fortnight or a month until they hire me, while I'm still working in a cafe, while I'm still working on learning how to code. And all of this is easy to paint it back in hindsight, but at the time it was looked at as being really stupid because I had this engineering degree. Eventually I went full-time doing this agency stuff, and the only condition was, like, I couldn't even afford a good laptop. So I said, okay, if you guys buy me a laptop, I'll work for 2 or 3 hours for free at the equivalent rate, which wasn't a lot, until I bought the laptop. So then I had a laptop all of a sudden. So eventually it got to a point, because they couldn't afford to hire me full-time, I was like, it's in my best interest to work for you guys full-time, because it's more aligned with where I want to go. Let me work in the actual agency itself, your business. I would like to help you grow your business, so I'm not serving coffee and lattes to fucking John down the road who's still asking me, why haven't I done anything with my life? And
people, let me tell you, people need to mind their business, and there's so much pressure when you just finish university. But I mean, in your case, you finished university and you decided that's not what you wanted to do. So then obviously you started to do your coding and get part-time jobs to save money. But what happened to a lot of my friends is that they finished university, and there's that period of time where you finish university and you're applying for jobs and you haven't found the job yet. And students get so much pressure from people, from everyone around them. So what are you doing with your life now? So have you found a job? So why are you still working your part-time job from when you were at university? I feel like people need to be a little bit more gentle with students and anyone that's just freshly graduated, because there's a lot we're going through. There's a lot we're navigating. Like, it's a big thing. It's not small. And when people put all that pressure on you, so why are you still working here? So why are you still doing this? I feel like it doesn't help. Like, people sometimes just need to mind their business.
yeah, there's two things I'd say to that kind of probably hopefully tie up what the point I was making there. Number one, if you finish university, you're being held accountable for a decision that you made when you literally you literally had to put your hand up to ask for permission to go to the toilet. Like, when you think about that, like, all of a sudden you're 22, 23, 24, whatever it is, and you're like, I fucking made this decision when my biggest thing was, who am I going to bring to the school dance? And am I going to get caught for underage drinking? Like, and yeah, like, you know, I'm not even allowed to go to the bathroom without permission. And you're being held accountable for it half a year later, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know what I was doing. No one actually told me what an important decision it is. Also, no one actually told me what the real world is going to look like after university. So, to round this up, I suppose my point about choosing uncertainty over unhappiness, is like when you're young, you objectively have the least amount of responsibility that you will in your entire life. And you'll always regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did. And I know it's a really big cliche, but I remember when I was younger, I watched this like Gary Vaynerchuk video, and he was like, it's a lot harder to take that risk, to start that business, to go for your music career, or to double down on becoming a professional athlete when you have to bring your daughter Sally to soccer practice and you're in your 30s or 40s. So like, no one really cares if you just go all out in your 20s and just double down on whatever you want to do. You can do the 9 to 5, start your passion in the meantime, but like, I'm allowed to swear on this because I think I have already.
You can swear.
Nobody gives a fuck if you spend 5-6 years and you took the road less traveled, metaphorically, and you bet on yourself. No one's gonna be like, oh, what a loser. I don't know, they thought they could be a professional footballer, fighter, or basketball player, or they wanted to start this stupid business idea. The work you do works on you more than you work on it. So no matter what, you will come out better. Because you developed a risk tolerance, and you know that if push comes to shove, you can bet on yourself. And yeah, there's this lad over here who's listening, Darren Lee, he records in this same place. He has a quote that I love, and I'm just giving business as a medium here, but you can look at it as sport or whatever. But business is a journey of self-discovery disguised as a quest for profitability. So I just look at every single thing we're doing in life, be it competing for an athletic event, like I'm doing a High Rocks in a few weeks, which if you're doing a High Rocks event, you're not allowed to not tell everyone, because otherwise it's like being a vegan, so you have to. Everyone needs to know. But like if I'm doing any kind of sports, I don't know if you're vegan, but it's
partly vegan.
Yeah, well,
vegan.
unless I feel like eating whatever. But
I'm joking.
But the point being is, all these different things, just view them as a medium to develop skills that's going to help you in life. I was literally thinking this as I was driving over here. Again, I'm just giving business as an example, but how you do anything is how you do everything, and usually, whatever issues you're having in one area of life, I can nearly guarantee is transcending into other areas. Like if you run an agency in the exact same niche as me, if you're getting negative feedback from clients, say you're not communicating well, I can nearly guarantee you're not communicating well in your day-to-day. If you're missing meetings, you're probably not showing up to normal events on time. If you're working with a team and they say you're micromanaging, you're probably a bit needy in your real life. And I think if you just view these different things as an opportunity for you to just literally level up, it becomes a lot more exciting, and the risk is removed. So if you want to take that risk, you want to do that thing in your life in your 20s and say, fuck it, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least I'm better. You can always take the safer option that you knew was going to make you unhappy in the first place. At least you'll be better because you'll have a more interesting story than the person that didn't jump and take the risk. So
absolutely,
that's my speech.
Absolutely. I know that sometimes people don't make risky decisions because they are worried about what their circle of friends would say about them. And I know this happens a lot with content creation. I have a lot of friends that just have a passion to be a content creator or do a career related to content creation, and they don't do it because they are scared they're going to be judged. And to that, I'd like to say I did read a book when I was at university called The Mountain Is You. Absolutely loved it. And one of the things that the book said that really stuck with me till this day, I still, paraphrase it whenever I'm going through a moment of doubt, is people are not thinking about you as much as you think they're doing. If that makes sense. That sometimes we think that everyone is thinking about us and everyone is thinking about our decisions and about our business. And in reality, people are not thinking about us as much as we think they are.
I think as well, like if you distill everything down, you're either operating out of fear or love with anything you do. Betting on yourself is an act of operating out of love. But not doing what you really want to do is operating out of fear. And more specifically, it's usually either like fear of being ostracized by a community, being like fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough, or fear of the unknown. And genuinely just putting pen to paper, being like, what am I actually scared of by not doing what I want to do? And you write it down. If you, like, literally in 45 minutes, you could probably figure out why you're not doing what you want to do and how to do it and get perspective. If you write down, I'm afraid of X, this person judged me, this person judged me, this person judged me, and write out what is the actual worst case scenario. You can be like, okay, well, if I lost everything, nobody respected me, I lost all my friends, whatever, what would I do to make up for that? And if you write down the worst case scenario for not doing what you want to do, for doing what you want to do, you realize it's not the end of the world. You're not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's so often the reason people don't do what they want to do is because they haven't actually written out what is the worst case scenario. And you're right, when you figure that out, you're like, oh, it's not actually that bad. It's very easy. I think if you just write out the worst case scenario realistically, it's very easy to work back from it. Or like, so you can have a game plan, and then all of a sudden you literally have nothing to lose. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Thanks for sharing that. What advice would you give to someone that is currently listening or watching this episode and they feel a bit lost because what they're doing is perhaps not bringing them joy? So obviously you mentioned write down the worst case scenario of what would happen if you left. What other tips would you give?
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
So if you couldn't
fail,
failure was...
and say nobody knew you were doing it. There's a line before, it's like, live as if your father was dead, or live if your mother was dead. Like, if your parents weren't, or whoever the people you're most afraid of judgment from weren't there, what would you be doing? Like, like my parents weren't impressed. You just got this engineering degree and you literally haven't even tried to use it. But I was like, I know it's not what I want to do. So let's just park their judgment and say, okay, what would I want to do? Like a friend of mine in university said, what's your dream? And I was like, it sounds stupid. I don't know how it would happen, but it'd be like travel around the world and do martial arts. It was literally what I said. And then it's kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, I think number one, write out what would you do if your parents or your friends weren't there. If they're, God forbid, touch wood, you know, if they're dead or whatever, they weren't, they just didn't exist. What would you do then? I think that'll give you a lot of insight. What are you happy is doing? So like, what's your ideal day look like? Is it being healthy? Okay, cool, right. There's a certain sport that I love doing. Oh, I love art. I love playing music. Whatever it is, write that down. And yeah, like I said, just map out what is the worst case, what's the worst case scenario if it all goes belly up? Could I get a temporary job? Or if it's relationship, like, oh, I'd be alone. Well, okay, well, being alone is better than being with the wrong person, whatever it is. And then just literally write out pros and cons. Like, what would I get if I did take this action? Like, begin with the ending in mind. If I'm 80 years old, that's actually the last one I would say. Two things. What would 80-year-old me want to do? It's like, because there's two people you're trying to keep happy. Younger you, 8-year-old you, and 80-year-old you. And I think the latter is easy to remember. I always just thought, like, when I'm literally about to die, what would I wish I did? And it's usually the riskier option. Fuck, I wish I pulled the trigger. Like, everyone has these decisions that they regret not taking in life. They have that, maybe it could have been a sport that if you kept going, you've all these friends that went professional, or if your passion was music and everyone else got really good at music, whatever it is, and they just stuck with it and they didn't stop. They just continued to bet on themselves. And I don't know about you, but like, I've had those instances where it's kept me up at night and I've just been kicking myself for not just believing in myself. And I just think, like, I had a realization a few years ago that that's a depressing life to live, a life of regrets. I think 80-year-old you, like, what would they regret not doing?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's...
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about masculine and feminine energy at work. This is something you and me spoke about a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about how to balance both the yin and the yang, and how can business owners lean into when to lean into one or the other.
Okay, I don't want to sound like esoteric and too much of like a hippie, but I think easy way of thinking about this is, masculine energy, like logical. I always think it's like swimming upstream, doing grunt work you don't want to do. Or better words, masculine energy is like the capacity to deal with fear, right? If things are going difficult, how do I react and do things I don't want to do? And these are just words. It doesn't mean like masculine doesn't have to be a guy, feminine doesn't have to be a girl. It's just
No, absolutely. Yeah.
it's just there's placeholder words. Feminine energy more sort of that whole like abundant, playful kind of lighthearted attitude where things just flow to you, like the more magnetic elements. And I think like that's the capacity to deal with love, right? And I'm just using these words again. I'm not trying to. It's not me trying to be overly politically correct here, but like we all kind of know when you're in that like great mood where everything's just working out. As you said, you don't need anything because you're having a good time. Opportunities just flow to you.
That's your feminine.
That's your feminine, yeah. And then
creativity, coming up with ideas.
Yeah.
That's your feminine.
Yeah, and it's also, again, with that, it's, as you said, it's where ideas come from. There's a reason people have the best ideas in the shower. It's because they're not in fight or flight, they're relaxed. And their brain is literally operating in like a theta brainwave state. So things just flow to you naturally. You can tap into whatever knowledge is in your subconscious. Masculine, on the other end, is like the capacity to deal with fight or flight. So that's like the David Goggins or like Alex Hormozy or any business gurus. Like, you know, don't be a bitch. Get up, 4 a.m. You know, 5 coffees, get stuck in, do 18 hours, grind,
Who needs
hustle.
sleep? You don't need sleep.
I
Sleep is for losers. You will sleep when you die.
It was a running joke for, to be honest, until like literally recently that me being sleep deprived was like a character trait of mine. It was part of my personality. But
please, can you tell us about that?
I was just like hopped up on like 10 or 11 coffees a day, working from like 5 to like 2 a.m. So like whatever, there would often be like back-to-back 18 or 20-hour days. But
oh my God.
The point I'm getting at here is, and that's if you think about that initial idea of being driven by fear, which I think for guys often is the case, anyways, I can't speak for women, it'll jumpstart things, but the issue is what I found, and I remember about a year ago, I was in Bulgaria at the time. I'm getting somewhere with this, but I kept hopping on these sales calls and they just weren't working out. And I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm literally so much better than I was when I first started. When I did that SEO, got that SEO clients, I hadn't a clue what I was doing. Why is it that I'm still not making any more money? I'm actually making less and nothing's working out. And how are we set for time, by the way?
Good, I'm checking it. And it's raining.
Okay, well, look, they're not going to kick us out, so.
We have 30 minutes.
Yeah, sweet. So a friend of mine, there was like a year where I didn't close a single sale, which is a lot, because I was doing a lot of outreach, the masculine kind of stuff. I was sending hundreds of emails every month. I was hopping on like several sales calls a week, and just nothing was working.
You're not signing up any clients?
I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't. And it was just started this negative feedback loop. I was like, why is this not working? I'm doing everything Hormozy said. Like, again, anyone listening, Alex Hormozy is this like gym, this entrepreneur who started a load of gyms, definition of like hustle culture. I'm telling myself I'm not good enough. I'm telling myself that I need to build evidence, but I'm coming into everything defeated. And my friend David said, we were on a call one day, he's like, what if it all worked out? And I don't know, whatever way it hit me, I'm in this like random mountain town in Bulgaria at the time. I just sat outside my balcony, I was like, fuck, like, I've been going to every single call, just taking it as a given that it's not going to work out. Like a metaphor, I was doing a ski season at the time, I was snowboarding. And a metaphor I always think of is, it's like, because I would snowboard a lot, and I used to go through these forests. And have you ever gone skiing or snowboarding? Or anything like that? Okay, cool. Well, the only
surfing.
Yeah, well, okay, well, so it's a similar idea with surfing. The only way, if I was to ask you, like, right, what is the only way you can ski through trees without hitting the trees? What do you know what you'd say? Guess. Practice, but the big thing is don't look at the trees. That's the big thing, because wherever the head goes, the body will follow.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you look at the trees, all you will see are trees, and you will hit the trees. You need to look for the opportunities between the trees, right? You look the only way, because you're not trying to go to the trees. You're trying to find the opportunities between them. You can't get that if you're in that fight or flight state. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. If you're going, an example, like if someone was interested in another person, like romantically, if they're going into that interaction, looking down at the ground, close off body language, thinking like, I'm not worthy of anything, the other person's going to make a read in that right away and be like, right, if they don't like and respect themselves, why would I? It's all subconscious, but the point being is, a big thing that's been happening in business advice recently is, and I was the embodiment of all this, like, you don't build confidence from shouting affirmations in the mirror. You build confidence from stacking undeniable evidence. My issue with that is that it's not binary. It's not one or the other. Because if I had this data in front of me, me doing more sales calls wasn't going to get me to where I wanted, because I was going into every single one not thinking I was good enough, thinking I'd lost the battle before it even started. I was my masculine, but there's no feminine there. There's no self-love. There's no like playfulness. There's no joy. I was in fight or flight, and you could smell it off me a mile away. And I was panicky. So what I basically started doing was just prioritizing basic stuff like meditation, like cliche, but like affirmations. Like one thing I wrote was like, everything works out because I know it will. I'm lucky because I've chosen to be. Opportunities flow to me effortlessly. Like I live an abundant life, like cliche stuff, but you imprint that long enough into your conscious, it becomes part of your subconscious. And then when an opportunity comes up, you're like, of course it worked out. Everything works out because I know it will. Oh, and a lucky opportunity came to you. Oh, of course it is. I've chosen to be lucky, so therefore I am. And then what happens is when you combine that workload, like the masculine stuff, but you also believe it's possible because you're enjoying the journey, I think that's why it's important to integrate. Similarly, you could be too much in your feminine, but not actually do the external work.
I was talking about that with my friend the other day. Met her for coffee, and she was like, that she was running her business purely from feminine energy. So she was like, clients will come, everything will flow. I don't want to stress. So everything was too chill, and she was actually, this is not a hobby, it's a business. So sometimes you have to be like assertive, and you have to be a little bit more organized and more strategic. And disciplined, which is a masculine trait, right? And be like, no, from this time to this hour, I'm working, and this is what I need to do, and this is my deadline. Otherwise, your business, it's just not gonna grow. You're gonna be, you're gonna get stuck.
Yeah, like you need a bit of both.
A little bit of both. That's why the yin and the yang.
Yeah, again, if you look at the yin and yang, there's a bit of white in the black, and there's a bit of black in the white. But at the end of the day, you put yourself in a position to be lucky. Like, I could hop on a sales call and I could close it and be like, oh my God, I'm so lucky that happened. We also sent out 7,000 emails last month. Yeah. And I also made 8 YouTube videos. I also ran 1 webinar. I also hosted like 8 podcasts. So, if I hadn't done that work, you know what I mean? Like, the opportunities don't come out of nowhere. So like, you need to, what's that thing? It's like, work so hard that I'll just call it luck. Work and just, I heard a good comparison. There's a guy, Ibrahim Turner, who's often in Bali. He's in a podcast and he talks about this. It's like, if you play basketball and you can get a 3-pointer, it doesn't mean that every single shot you take should be a 3-pointer. You should still take the opportunity to take a smaller one, when you get the chance, but confident in your ability that if push came to shove, things would work out. If that makes sense. Like, do the grunt work and just rest easy in the knowledge that, like, okay, this will work out. It's not life or death. And then what will happen is you're not clutching onto everything. And then, as you said, you get sales calls. People are like, oh, why is Abby so confident? Why is Tomás so confident? Oh, they obviously don't need me. Fuck. As you said, people can smell desperation a mile away. And if you're between 2 friends that you want to hang out with, one is just chill and they make you feel good when you're around them. The other's like desperately texting you every 5 minutes about linking up. You know which one's going to make you feel better and which one's going to actually put you more on edge. You're going to be attracted to the person who's got that quiet confidence. Confidence is quiet. So,
love that so much. We have time to talk about the airport test.
Yeah.
So would you like to talk to us about the airport test?
Yeah, the airport test, it's I mean, it's more of a business specific bit of advice, but you can use this for any area of life, but I think more so business.
Yeah, like if you could just explain to us, how does it apply
Yeah.
to making decisions?
How does it apply? So I think of this more so like when I'm hiring someone, or if I'm working with like a client or whatever. There's three areas in life that you kind of look for when you're hiring someone. It's like their skill set, how much of a hard worker they are, and then their character. And like the skill set, it's the engineer in me. Like the skill set multiplied by the energy will dictate how much work they'll get done. But it's the character, the personality traits that will dictate like what direction that work will be done. If someone's in your back and they have your corner, they'll move you along like crazy. It's like pulling a cart forward. But if they have bad intentions, or there's friction because they don't communicate, or all these other personality traits, they could be actively pulling against your goals. So I find personally, if I want to work with people, again, you can look at other areas of life. Culture fit and personality is the most important thing, and just the test I use for that is what I call the airport test, and that's if I was stuck in an airport with this person for 5 hours, like would I be able to talk to them? Would I actually get along with them? Are they just awkward, or do they just not give me good energy when I'm around them? Do I feel worse when I'm around them? Do they not communicate? And yeah, it's an easy way of kind of gauging, are they a good fit? Because you can have some of the best credentials in the world. You can have the best LinkedIn profile, a really good resume, but if you just aren't good to work with, it doesn't matter. Everything else is redundant. If you have an ego or whatever.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's talk about role models. You mentioned you don't have one role model, but you like to identify traits from different people that you admire and like put together your own mixture.
It's like a Frankenstein's monster. Yeah.
Could you talk to us about this and give us tips to find the best role model for us?
Yeah. I think, again, putting pen to paper for a lot of this is good. It's like the masculine stuff, but like that's the way I think. And nobody's perfect, obviously, and you shouldn't put anybody on a pedestal. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they'll identify a certain trait in someone. There's one that comes to mind, but I don't know if I'll give it. And people will try and take on all the rest of their character traits. The issue is where someone's really, I'll give an example, right? Say if someone wanted to get good at mixed martial arts. Back in the day, they might have looked at Conor McGregor as an example, a really good inspirational role model. And there's a while where he was. But if you wanted to have a healthy, balanced lifestyle or have healthy relationships, probably not the role model for you, because his personal life is completely different. And obviously that, to piggyback what we said before, has actually resulted in him self-sabotaging in the career side of things. So I think you need to basically identify the certain traits that you admire in somebody, compartmentalize that, be like, okay, these are the good elements that I want to work on. Okay, cool. So for example, giving that guy Alex Hormozy as an example, when it comes to actual nuanced understanding of business and how to get clients and work ethic when required, great example. I'd hate his life. I would not like to do it. So I'd park that. All right, say if you want a healthy relationship, you might look at somebody else. You might look at, I don't know, top of my head, like Jay Shetty. Okay, cool. So I'll look at him for the relationship side of things. Okay, well, physical health wise, okay, who's a good outlook? I'm throwing random people off the top of my head here.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Or yeah, if you want to play football, exactly. Just because someone's good in one area of life doesn't mean you need to try and take on their traits in the rest of it. But you kind of have this tribe of mentors, is a good way to view it. Like, I mean, I have certain business coaches where I get the sense I wouldn't like their personal life. At the end of the day, I'm living in Bali. They've got like an office. So yeah, I think just realizing, okay, so like this person, I'll take business or career advice from them. Okay, this person, I'll take relationship advice from them. This person's a really healthy lifestyle. Their professional life mightn't be there, but they're exceptional at you know, taking care of themselves. They eat really healthy. And I think your life changes when those around you look up to every single one of those around you, and you can identify those traits. And you can take note of it. Like, oh, I got this one friend. He's always so honest. This person, they're always so punctual. This person, really high emotional intelligence. May have high emotional intelligence, but they may not have the work ethic of another person. Okay, cool. But I can still learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can learn from everybody around you. So
I like that.
Yeah, it also means you're inevitably going to be more respectful to everyone around you, because you realize that there's a certain facet of their life that you can learn from.
There's something to learn from everyone. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's good, unrelated, but I guess it's also good to tell them, like, if you admire something about them, like if they're always on time. I have one of my friends, Shivani, she's watching this. She's always on time everywhere. So I admire that ethic she has to always be on time, always be early, like just be super organized. Yeah. I always tell her like how I look up to be like her in that way.
Yeah, funny enough, literally about half an hour before we started recording this, I talked to my friend. Again, how you do anything is how you do everything. I had a meeting that I was late for yesterday. And I was like, this is definitely something that's happened when we were having like dinners and stuff with us friends. And I, you know, he's always, it's funny, he's always early for everything. And I was like, I would love to talk to you about later about my own timekeeping punctuality, because this is not something that I want to drip into, because I know it's dripping in every other area, certain things like deadlines or being on time and stuff like that, but it's not a small thing. So having, again, that tribe of mentors, knowing, okay, well, like, he's the punctual guy or she's the punctual girl, I'd love to just, I was thinking like downloading a bit of their outlook on life. And
but sometimes asking them, like I asked it with my friend Shivani, one of my New Year resolutions for the year was to be like, stop being late everywhere. I just wanted to be that person that's always early. So I literally just, I guess I was doing what you said subconsciously. Yeah. And I just went to speak to her and ask for her top tips that she could give me. And she also keeps me accountable.
That's literally the next thing I was going to say. I think actually getting them to hold you accountable. And like, again, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for that, but I know for guys, like my friends, if I'm slacking in an area of life, they'll be like, who are you trying to fool here? Like, don't bullshit yourself. You said you'd be on time for this, you're not. Why? You said you'd do this bit of work. Why? So again, I can't speak for women, but for men, anyways, I think it's important for your friends to have a high standard for you and not like be passive and talk to each other about this character trait that you've let slip. Have friends that will call you out and say, hey, just so you know, you're coming across as unreliable here. Want to give you the feedback here so you can act on it. And I don't want, as your friend, I don't want others to think this about you. I've had that, like, you know, because ultimately it's feedback that potentially, if your friends are honest, is valid. That's only going to improve you. So I'm just viewing that one specific lens. It could be the same as, hey, your sleep, I'm projecting a lot here, but your sleep is bad. You know that's letting you down, or you're not exercising enough. You know, whatever it is. Just leaving your ego at the door. And if you have that tribe of role models in different areas, you start spiraling up, leveling up this area, this area, this area, this area, and then all of a sudden you're a different person.
I love that so much. Okay, so what is, I wanted to ask you about what's one small but powerful shift someone can make today to help them, let me rephrase that, because that's two questions I'm mixing together. So what is one small but powerful decision someone can make today to, bring them closer to the life of their dreams and stop living in fear?
With two things. I'd say, obviously you need to define it first. Again, go through that exercise I talked about, like what would older me want to do, all that kind of stuff. And then, what would 80-year-old me want to do? What would 8-year-old want me to do? If my parents weren't there to judge me, or family wasn't there, friends weren't there to judge me, what's the worst case scenario? When you've defined that, it's funny because like 2-year-old me 2 years ago would have completely thought this is like wishy-washy stuff, but genuinely just start telling yourself that you can, but like be specific about it, because you're not going to even, again, miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, if you don't think there's a chance of you making that shot, you're not going to take it. So
Absolutely.
and
That's the smallest shift you can make, but it's the most
it
powerful
takes
is your mind.
5 minutes. Like literally meditate, write something down, and it is cheesy, but it works. Like I remember, I mean, book Think and Grow Rich. It's such a, again, it's a cliche book, but I remember reading that when I was in college, and then actually when I started getting things working again, when I mentioned that time in Bulgaria, I thought, okay, when was my life working the best? Well, I was meditating. I was reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I was reading Think and Grow Rich. So I bought a copy of that, and that whole book is literally just your subconscious beliefs form your identity. You repeat, basically, because your internal voice is just an external voice that got internalized. So if you have your internal belief thinking that you genuinely can, if you have faith that things will work out, your conscious thoughts will act differently, and by extension, your behavior will act differently. By extension, your reality goes differently. So if you're like, I'm a lucky person, I take action, or I'm on time, I'm reliable, or I'm not late to things, and I'm saying this as someone who's literally just updated my own little mantra for myself, because those are traits I need. It's important for me to embody more. You effortlessly start changing your behavior. So it's also important to remember your subconscious mind can't process a negative thought, which is really important to remember. Like if I say, don't think of a blue car, what's the first thing you do?
Think.
Of a blue car, yeah, like obviously. And this is where like a lot of people get it wrong. Is that book The Secret? I used to think it was absolute bullshit. But it did say one point, this is like mirrored in like neuro-linguistic programming and stuff, which is, again, your subconscious can't process negative thoughts. So you should speak about what you want, not what you don't want. So again, define what you want, tell yourself you can, and only speak in positive language about that, because the words you speak to yourself and others is very important. I'll give one example. Like one time, a friend of mine, I said, like, I wasted all my money on this. He was like, no, you've invested your money on it. You haven't got a return yet. But like beating yourself up over mini failures isn't going to get anywhere. So, small adjustment. Tell yourself you can, just be mindful of the language that you're using. For example, you should never be saying, I'm trying to do something like that. Because trying implies that you probably think you're going to fail. I'm trying to start a business. No, you are starting a business. I'm trying to get a promotion. No, you're working towards getting a promotion. I'm trying to find a partner. No, you're working on yourself so you can find a partner. I'm trying to get healthy. No, you're changing your behavior so you're getting healthy. That is it. Like trying implies that you think you're going to fail. And that's all your subconscious is going to remember is that I'm trying. Okay, well then I'm not. Do you know what I mean? Trying implies that you're not there now. So speak as if you are where you want to be. Do that long enough, the first week or 2 or 3, it might sound like you're bullshitting yourself, but inevitably it does start slipping into your subconscious and you become the person that you want to be, like ahead of time basically, and your behavior acts accordingly.
I love that.
So yeah.
And related to that, would you like to talk very quickly about your hypnotherapy work and how do you help your clients?
Yeah, it's funny because like, anyone knows me is like, what the hell is he after doing here? Again, disclaimer, I'm extremely logical. So like, if I didn't think this was legit, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, you, as a reminder, he's a biomedical engineering graduate,
yeah.
So you are a very like science-driven person.
Yeah, no, like if you start waving crystals at me, I'm not going to believe in it. So like anything like that, I'm not, like, it's not my buzz. But what actually happened was, so I basically received a lot of hypnotherapy sessions, and I, again, big skeptic here. But a friend of mine, I won't mention him. Actually, I was living with him at the time. Really successful business guy. Came home one day. He was like, I did this hypnotherapy session. It was unreal. He's like, I really recommend it. If you've any money at all, I'd recommend doing it. I was like, okay. So I did it. At the time, I was getting really stressed about work. Worked through that, and again, disclaimer: if anyone thinks this doesn't work, like I came from, not that I had an alcohol problem, but I was drinking a fair bit, once or twice a week, but drinking heavily, drinking like 10 or 11 coffees a day, like a lot, and just like did a session. I quit everything overnight. So it does work. I've loads of people that quit cigarettes, after smoking 30 years straight, you know, in a session. So be it placebo or not, it did work. And I think that's why I wanted to look into it more. So, because you could go so deep into this, it's a separate conversation.
Yeah,
but
we can do a separate episode about this.
In a nutshell, though, basically.
Part two.
Yeah, part two.
Part two.
Basically, with the hypnotherapy side of things, and it mirrors that masculine feminine thing, is like 95% of your decision making is done by your subconscious mind, right? So if you ever seen the movie Limitless?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy Eddie Mora, he takes this pill that allows
Yeah.
him to unlock 100% of his brain. Same thing. If you think of it that way, because if you think of it like an iceberg, actually, this is my explanation that I give to people really quickly. If you think of your mind as an iceberg, right? Above the water, you have your conscious mind. Below the water, you have your subconscious mind. And at the water level, you have what's called the critical filter. Okay? The critical filter is what dictates what gets through your conscious mind and into your subconscious, right? Think of it like the bouncer of a nightclub, right? It tells you, it decides what thoughts are going to get in, what doesn't. And again, an example is, you know, that whole saying, like, you get the love you think you deserve, you know, in relationships. Fundamentally, if someone believes that they're unworthy of love, someone shows them love, they're going to reject it because it's unfamiliar to them, right? Or they think that they're unsuccessful, or they're just unlucky. A lucky opportunity comes, they're like, nah, it's not me. Because your subconscious will always be looking for ways, again, choosing unhappiness over uncertainty. It will always look for ways to reaffirm that identity of itself because it doesn't want to change, right? And these beliefs probably came from when it was like 0 to 7 years old. So again, how is this all tied together? Like, basically, when you're a kid, your conscious mind does not exist. So you're just a sponge. Anything that happens to you, you just take it at face value. What happens then is that forms your identity. So I'm just giving an example. I'm just someone who's unlucky, or people just don't like me, or I'm just unathletic, whatever it is. And anytime something comes to the real world, through the top of the iceberg, the filter says reject, that conflicts with that, the filter just pushes it away. So in hypnotherapy, basically what you do is you get into that theta brainwave state that I talked about, like the really meditative one, or basically it's like if the filter's the bouncer, you're sneaking in the back door of the nightclub, you're talking to the manager, you're saying, hey, let that person in the future, don't let that one in. And you're changing the identity, the image of how you view yourself. So in like your case or my case, okay, I'm someone who's reliable and shows up to things on time. Then next time the opportunity comes up to act differently, you're like, no, I'm a reliable person now. And by doing that, by changing your identity, your behavior changes and your life changes. So like in my case, I just stopped identifying as someone who drinks coffee because I don't need it. So I just don't drink coffee, don't drink alcohol. Now I exercise more. Now my life's different. Now I'm healthier. That's the gist of why we do it and kind of how it works at a really, really, really high level.
I love
that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure thing.
Well, thank you for sharing everything with us. I just have a couple of questions. I wanted to make you just quick fire questions, just so everybody can get to know you a little bit more. Right. You've obviously mentioned so many amazing books throughout the interview, but what is one book that's changed the way you think? Like your top one.
It literally depends. Again, this is not a thing I'd say, like with mentors, same with books.
Yeah, so same with books?
It depends, yeah. Like, okay,
so then...
pick an area of life.
Okay, so in this area of self-confidence, so what's one book that's just changed the way you think about yourself and, yeah.
Self-confidence, again. Just because it's an easy book, Think and Grow Rich, probably be one. Cliche name, like really, really cringy name, but it's good. Another one, Psycho-Cybernetics, is a good one. They both talk about that idea of changing your identity as someone who's, you know, and then your reality changing. So
I love that. Thank you so much. What's the best advice you've ever received?
So broad, I don't know. I'll probably be going around in circles here, but whether you think again, it's a quote, but whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right.
So what?
Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. That was by Henry Ford.
Love that. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
I mean, they didn't speak English, but it's so random. Marcus Aurelius, he was a Roman emperor, but he wrote this book, Meditations, which I've like a really tattered copy of. And he wrote this whole like his whole thing was like he was like one of the fathers of Stoicism.
I love
But he was
that.
like a most powerful person on the planet. But in his spare time, he wrote this like journal on how to be the best person he could be. So he was like grounded. I can't speak ancient Greek, but like if there's a translator,
In Spain, I grew up in Spain. Well, between Spain and the UK, but in Spain, you can learn ancient Greek in high school.
Yeah,
You
so I
can
should have grown up
literally
in
learn
Madrid.
it.
Yeah, well, my name's Tomás. It sounds like Tomás, so I got the first name.
Amazing. What's one daily habit that you currently do that has completely, that's made the, okay, what's one daily habit that you do that's completely changed your business?
My business.
No, let me say that again. No. Something has bit me on my foot and it's so annoying. Okay. What's one daily habit? Okay. What's one daily habit that's made the biggest impact on your business?
I don't. I'd say principle more than habit, and that is like finding time for myself every day, and that could be just so I'm not acting in a reactive state. Be it like meditating or it's a cliche biohacking e-commerce bro thing of having an ice bath, but like genuinely doing something like an ice bath or some sort of exercise in the morning. Yeah, doing something difficult in the morning, be it like either exercise, be an ice bath, be meditating. So then whatever stressful situations come up, I know it's like I have perspective. Like if I'm in an ice bath and I'm freezing and there's an email I need to send, by comparison, I'm thinking like it's literally just an email. I need to type a few buttons and press send. So yeah, doing something difficult in the morning, and then all of a sudden, all of the decisions you need to make in business seem like simple. By contrast, yeah.
What's your go-to way to reset when you're feeling stuck?
Exercise followed by meditation. Yeah, like what's that saying? It's like tame the body, or exhaust the body, tame the mind. So if your mind's racing, just run it. Like I just get out of that head, because the quote was like telling an overthinker to think his way out of his problem is like trying to get a coke addict to sniff his way out of his coke problem. Like if your issue is that you're ruminating more won't get you anywhere. So you need to get into your body, exercise, breathwork, ice bath. Those are sort of the three main things. And then you regulate your nervous system. And then when you need to make a decision, you're coming from a place of, rest and digest, peace, yeah, as opposed to fight or flight. So.
Perfect. And last question: if you had to start over from scratch today, what's the first thing you would do? So if you had to start your marketing agency from scratch today, what's the first thing you would do?
Make an offer that's a no-brainer to people with money, and then I'd reach out to as many as I can, and do it so there's very little downside to them. So like I talked to you about this before. Specific example: say if I'm helping a medical clinic because that's our niche, or like say a cosmetic clinic that offers like Botox and stuff, whatever, or a dental clinic, I would probably do an offer of something like, we'll reach out to all of your previous patients based on our track. Do I still have my track record from my existing clients?
No.
Yeah, I would just do an offer with very little downside for the person, the people I'm selling to, make the numbers make sense, being like, we can project to make this much amount from you, that'll cover your costs. Then we'll also do ads or whatever it is. Yeah, just minimize the risk for the other people. Make sure I'm selling to people that actually have money, like solve rich person problems, make rich person money. And then that would be a case of like the whole masculine stuff. Just do a stupid amount of volume. Like volume negates luck. Most people have failed because they literally just haven't done enough. That the last thing I'll say on that business wise, like I've had people say freelancing doesn't work. I'm like, okay, how many people have you reached out to? I'm like, oh, 10. I'm like, I'm reaching out to thousands literally hundreds every single day.
At least I used to do 100 per day.
Yeah.
At least.
Minimum. Yeah, exactly.
At least.
It's just a numbers game.
And that doesn't count your networking events where you
Yeah.
speak to people in person, social media outreach. I used to do
Inbound from
100
content.
just emails. Yeah.
Exactly. And that, like, we send like 300, it's automated, but 380 emails a day, like 20, 30 on freelancing platforms, like 100 on LinkedIn. That's that's 5 days a week. So again, that's why it's important to have that balance of like believe in yourself, but also give yourself the numbers. So yeah, really good offer, sell to people with money and do a stupid amount of volume and believe in yourself that you can do it.
So where can people find you?
I suppose on Instagram.
We will link everything
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
We'll also link his marketing agency in case we have anybody interested in working with him.
But yeah, the agency is called Clinic Success Partners. That's CLINIC, success, whatever way, CUCCESS partners.com. And yeah, just shoot me a message on whatever, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it is.
Amazing.
I was happy to chat with cool people.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Appreciate it.
And that's it.
That's it. Cheers to the next one.